This is Kurt up with you, and these are 100 tombs that would have been better
never to open. A coffin on the roof. For centuries, human bodies have served as objects for anatomical study, and the main source of them was often executed criminals. However, as the number of death sentences decreased in the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools began to suffer from a shortage of bodies for research. This problem gave rise to resurrectionists, people who dug up freshly buried corpses to sell to anatomists. To protect against such thefts, cages and traps were installed in cemeteries, and guards were hired. Some bodies were even left in mortuaries so that decomposition would make them useless to grave robbers. But the Englishman Genry Trick found his own extremely unusual way. Genry lived in the 18th century in Stevenage, was a wealthy grocer, and was respected in society. However, one day he witnessed grave robbers digging up a body in a cemetery. This shocked him so much that he decided not to let this happen to him. In his will, Genry asked for his body to be placed in a lead coffin and set under the rafters of his own barn, far from the cemetery. He even provided a punishment for his relatives if his last will was violated. After his death in 1724, his body was indeed placed in the barn, which attracted a lot of curious visitors. Over time, the barn became a tavern, and Henry's coffin became a local attraction. However, his remains met a sad fate. Visitors and soldiers took them as souvenirs, and by the beginning of the 20th century, only a small part of the skeleton remained. Today, Henry's coffin still rests in the barn, but the remains are lost, leaving behind only legends about his ghost. Red mystical spheres. In the south of the Canadian province of Alberta, in the Red Rock Coulee area, dozens of stone spheres lie scattered across the steppe at great distances from each other. They look as if they were deliberately placed across the landscape. The diameter of some exceeds 2.5 meters. Their weight is measured in tons, their shape is close to a perfect circle, and their surface is painted in a rich reddish-brown color, which stands out especially against the light-colored soil. These formations were formed millions of years ago within sedimentary rocks in the thickness of sandstone. Around the solid core, cement from minerals dissolved in underground waters gradually accumulated. Over time, the soft rock was eroded by wind and precipitation, while the dense cores emerged on the surface. The iron in the minerals oxidized and gave the stones their characteristic color. Inside the spheres, a concentric structure is often visible, and sometimes there are radiating cracks. One of the spheres is split almost perfectly in half, allowing us to see its layered structure. Geologists use these objects as a clear example of processes that usually remain hidden underground. The place remains hard to reach with no tourist infrastructure or roads around. This preserves the feeling of isolation and enhances the visual effect. The stones lie motionless, not forming lines or circles, each in its own place, like frozen fragments of a long-finished process. These spheres are not related to activity, but often end up at the center of discussion precisely because of their shape. They show how complex and precise structures geology can create without the involvement of intelligence. The discovery in a hard-to-reach cave, this bronze dagger with a bone handle, is a Bronze Age artifact found in Malta in an almost inaccessible cave beneath the Dingley Cliffs. It dates back to around 2000 before Christ and belongs to the Borg in Nader phase, when there was an advanced Bronze Age culture in Malta. However, it is still unknown why the ancient inhabitants chose this remote cave to place their artifacts. Perhaps the place had special significance or ritual value. The dagger's handle is decorated with circular patterns, which draws attention and raises many questions. This motif resembles certain elements of Mycenaean Greek art, which may indicate cultural influence or trade connections. Interestingly, in the Bronze Age village where this dagger was discovered, shards of Mycenaean pottery were also found. Why the dagger was left in this cave, whether it was part of a ritual or a symbol of special status, we can only guess. But every detail, from the green patina on the blade to the mysterious circles on the handle, makes us think about the life and worldview of the ancient Maltese and, possibly, their connections with the Mycenaean Greeks. Treasures of the Third Reich. On the popular British show Antiquus Roadshow, a visitor brought what he believed to be a rare Leica camera, decorated with Olympic rings, an eagle, a swastika, and the date 1936. He was sure that the device was connected to the Olympic Games in Berlin and was a valuable Nazi artifact. However, the show's expert, Mark Alum, who specializes in antique cameras, gave an unexpected conclusion. The camera turned out to be a fake. The guest said that he bought the camera for £480 in an antique shop, thinking it was a good deal. Alum, impressed by the appearance of the camera, noted its beauty, but quickly pointed out the details that revealed it was a fake. He explained that the antique market, especially in Eastern Europe, is flooded with fake Leica cameras made to deceive collectors. The expert pointed out issues with the serial numbers and the poor quality of the engraving, which is unacceptable for original Leica cameras. A genuine rare Leica camera could be worth thousands of pounds. For decades, explorers searched for the Inca labyrinth beneath the center of Cusco, something they considered a myth. Chronicles from the 1860s mentioned the underground labyrinth of Chincana, a network of tunnels that began at the Temple of the Sun and extended beneath the city. For a long time, this was considered just a legend until archaeologists approached the task without excavations, using acoustic surveys and ground-penetrating radar. The result turned out to be too precise to ignore. An extensive system of hollow corridors was detected beneath the city, with the main branch connecting the Coricancha Temple to the Sacsayhuaman Fortress. The distance is over a kilometer. The tunnels are about 2.5 meters wide, and the height is around 1.5 meters. This is not a secret passage, but a full-fledged underground route. The system has branches in different parts of the city, like a real street network, only hidden beneath the stone. The Incas first dug trenches, then reinforced them with stone walls and beams, turning the space into a stable structure. Now researchers are preparing precise entry points to get inside without damaging the system. All this points to a well-thought-out infrastructure designed for actual movement and control of space in the moment, a moment when the city above might have been unsafe. A hidden tunnel. A mysterious tunnel has been discovered beneath the colossal temple dedicated to the god Osiris, a tunnel that had been concealed for centuries. And here's where it gets really interesting. There are theories that this tunnel might lead to the long-lost tomb of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. A joint Dominican-Egyptian archaeological mission from the University of San Domingo discovered this tunnel, which is 1,305 meters long, beneath the temple of Taposiris Magna Osiris in Alexandria. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Kathleen Martins, called this discovery an engineering marvel. According to her, the design of the tunnel is very similar to the design of the Eupalinian tunnel in Greece, which was an aqueduct before it collapsed. Studies have shown that this area of the Egyptian coast suffered from at least 23 earthquakes between 320 and 1303 AD, which archaeologists believe led to the collapse of the tunnel. Scientists have been studying the ruins around Taposiris Magna for several years. Maybe this tunnel doesn't lead to the long-lost tomb of Cleopatra, but who knows what else Taposiris Magna is hiding? Perhaps in the future, archaeological work will reveal this greatest mystery. 1. The first calculator from the 17th century. Did you know that Blaise Pascal was not only a brilliant mathematician but also invented amazing things? Here is one of his stories that will show you how talent and adventurousness can come together to create something unique. In the 17th century, Pascal brought his idea to life in the form of the first arithmetic adding machine, which was called the Pascaline. It was actually the second calculating machine, but the first one that was really built and used. So, how did it all begin? Blaise Pascal was inspired by his father, who worked with taxes and faced problems with finances and accusations of treason. Then the young Pascal came up with the idea to create a mechanism that would make calculating taxes easier, since at that time all calculations were done on counting boards. In 1642, when Blaise was 19 years old, he started working on this project. A couple of years later, and after numerous modifications and research, he created a machine that looked like a shoebox with dials on top, gear wheels, and windows to display the calculations. Unfortunately, the Pascaline could only add numbers, since the gear wheels could rotate in only one direction. But by using a clever mathematical trick with 9's complement, it was possible to subtract numbers. Although the device was complex on the inside, the Pascaline amazed people, since such a level of automation had never existed before. Later, Blaise Pascal made about 50 of these machines and sold around 20 of them. The adoption of these machines was hindered by their high cost and the complexity of production. In addition, France only switched to the metric system for monetary calculations in 1799. So, thanks to courage and ingenuity, the Pascaline calculating machine was created for Blaise Pascal, which greatly simplified calculations and became the predecessor of modern calculators. As you can see, sometimes unusual ideas and adventurousness can lead to the discovery and creation of unique things that change the world. Remember this story the next time you hear about some strange invention, because it might become something truly great. The secret of a 4,000-year-old artifact. In 2001, the archaeological world was puzzled by a stream of unique antiquities appearing on the antiques market. Jewelry, weapons, and ceramics with exquisite designs and inlays appeared out of nowhere, raising questions about their origin. The pieces, distinguished by complex symbolism, were attributed to Central Asia, but it was later discovered that they were not forgeries. An investigation in Iran in 2002 revealed the secret behind these discoveries. The arrests of the dealers led to the discovery of the location of the artifacts in the Halil River Valley, where a flood in 2001 revealed an ancient Bronze Age necropolis. Local residents began selling the artifacts, thus revealing the existence of a previously unknown culture. The archaeologists were amazed by the scale of the discovery and began to study the site, excavating the main necropolis of Maktutabad and two burial mounds, Southern, Northern, Konor, and Sandal, discovering remains of ancient structures and evidence of a highly developed civilization. In 2003, under the leadership of Yusuf Majidzadeh, systematic excavations began, lasting several years and uncovering amazing artifacts and evidence of the existence of an ancient city here. Debates about the origin and significance of the Girafat culture continue. Some scholars believe it to be the legendary errata from Sumerian texts, while others suggest an association with the ancient kingdom of Marhashi. Despite differences in opinion, the excavations in Girafte have provided invaluable information about an ancient civilization, leaving much room for further research and discoveries. Bodiless figurines. In Egyptian Tanis, archaeologists uncovered a tomb that immediately broke the usual logic of burial rituals. Inside, there were 225 Ushabti funerary figurines carefully arranged in strict order. They formed even horizontal rows in geometric shapes resembling star patterns. Such a composition requires time, intention, and a clear ritual scenario, but the main element was missing. There was no body in the tomb. Before Egypt's third intermediate period, this seems almost impossible. Ushabti were intended to serve the deceased. In the afterlife, their number, arrangement, and symbolism were always tied to a specific person. More than half of the figures turned out to be female, which further broke with tradition. The symbols of power on the figurines point to Pharaoh Shoshenq III, who ruled in the 9th century before Christ, but his remains were not found here. Excavations occurred under intense conditions. Archaeologists removed figurines individually, recording their position in order to preserve the ritual structure. Even at the clearing stage, it became clear that they were looking at a completed burial space, created according to a pre-planned scheme. The arrangement of the figures, their number and symbolism indicate a deliberate ritual act carried out in full. The reign of Shoshenq III came at a time when Egypt lived in a state of constant tension. Power was fragmented, regions were subordinate to different centers, and decisions were made in an atmosphere of threat and distrust. In this reality, even the pharaoh's death no longer guaranteed peace. The evidence suggests that the place was prepared in advance, the ritual was carried out in full, and the fate of the body itself was decided separately. The transfer of remains, changing the burial site, or hiding the mummy fits the logic of an era where security was valued more than tradition. As a result, what remained was a tomb filled with symbols of power, but lacking the most important thing, the ruler himself. They were part of the story of the crucifixion, in an ancient Georgian painting depicting the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Attention was drawn to a mysterious object that resembles an unidentified flying object. In the background behind the cross, there is an object that looks like a giant button with legs. A character in the painting points at it with his hand, which appears to be the artist's deliberate emphasis. The origin of the painting and the name of its author remain unknown, although it is believed that the image was created about 1,000 years ago in the 11th century. The church where this painting is located dates back to an even earlier period. Although the current building was constructed between 1010 and 1029, some believe that this figure could represent guardian angels, although this contradicts the traditional depictions of angels from that era, who were usually shown with wings. Others suggest that the artist may have intentionally depicted something resembling flying saucers as part of a broader symbolism. It could be an allegory or an element of a religious myth that has not survived in modern interpretations. The painting continues to spark interest and debate, offering a unique perspective on the combination of religious art and unexplained symbols that remain a mystery to this day. The Band of Holes in Peru. In the Pisco Valley in Peru, there is a mysterious place known as the Band of Holes, or Monte Sierpe. It is a narrow strip of land, 14 to 20 meters wide and about 1,500 meters long, covered with thousands of shallow holes. Their exact purpose remains a mystery, although scientists have proposed many theories. The site first gained fame thanks to an aerial photograph by Robert Shippey, published in the 1930s in National Geographic. Archaeologists avoided Monte Sierpe for a long time. It was only in the 1950s that Victor von Hagen studied the pits and suggested that they were empty graves, estimating their total number at 5,000. Later, John Hyslop put forward the theory that the pits were used as storage facilities, similar to those found in other parts of Peru. Each hole is about a meter in diameter and up to a meter deep. They are made in different ways. Some are dug into the embankment, while others are surrounded by stone walls. Modern research, including a detailed map created with a drone in 2015, has shown that the strip of holes consists of 5,000 to 6,000 pits, divided into blocks with unique patterns. Nearby are Inca roads and the remains of storage facilities, and some ceramics indicate their origin from the 15th century when the Inca conquered the Chincha people. Archaeologist Charles Stanish believes that the pits may have been used to measure agricultural tribute that local farmers gave to the rulers. Other scholars, such as Jean-Pierre Prosant, believe that the line of holes may be older. He thinks that the pits could have been used to store fertilizers, such as excrement. To this day, the Band of Holes remains one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in Peru. Who created it, why, and how still remains a subject of debate and ongoing research. The Ring of Fidelity. During excavations near the Danube in what is now Bulgaria, archaeologists unearthed a gold ring that looks too personal for an archive and too alive for a display case. It is dated to the end of the 2nd or the beginning of the 3rd century AD. This is a Roman ring of marital fidelity, an item that accompanied marriage not in a symbolic sense, but in a legal and social one. An oval plate is engraved with a couple. The image is simple, without pomp, but it conveys the idea of union as a fact. Two people fixed in metal, the plate itself is soldered to the rim, with parallel grooves running along the sides. The technique is characteristic of high-quality Roman jewelry. Such rings were more often worn by women in Rome. It was a sign of status, confirmation of a legal marriage, and belonging to a family. Sometimes such rings also served as personal seals, meaning they were objects used to literally sign everyday life. The context of the place adds scale. We're discussing Bononia, an ancient city that began as a military fort and became a key trade route point on the Danube. Nearby are items from different eras, including a Byzantine lead seal from the early 11th century. This was a place where power and borders often shifted, and the river served as a road, marketplace, and risk, all at once. 120 pieces of jewelry in the buttocks. The stricter the customs checks become, the more sophisticated smuggling gets. Recently, a man was detained at El Prat Airport in Catalonia, who tried to smuggle an entire collection of jewelry inside himself, hiding 121 pieces. In one of the most unexpected places, between his buttocks, he hoped to fly to Algeria without any problems. Among the hidden items were earrings, bracelets, rings, medals, and crosses, a full assortment for a jewelry shop. The border guard grew suspicious due to the man's nervousness and one-way ticket. He was taken to a separate room for additional inspection, where an X-ray scan revealed a large amount of metal in his backside. When the contents were extracted, even the experienced customs officers were shocked. 8 bracelets, 23 chains, 17 medals, 7 crosses, 19 rings, 15 earrings, and 32 fragments of gold jewelry. The attempt to avoid a customs declaration in this way failed. The man was detained, the gold was confiscated, and now the Spanish police are investigating the origin of the jewelry and possibly the smugglers' connections to a criminal group. Astronomical Compendium from 1550. Here's an interesting fact from archaeology. There used to be devices called astronomical compendiums. These were small instruments for complex calculations, all packed into one box. Astronomical compendiums were quite expensive and were a sign of their owner's wealth. One of these compendiums, made around 1550 in Augsburg, is crafted from gilded brass. Such a compendium included a variety of instruments, including a nocturnal for telling time at night by the stars, lists of latitudes, a magnetic compass, a list of ports and harbors, a perpetual calendar, and a lunar indicator. With the help of an astronomical compendium, one could determine the current time, the tide height in ports, and perform calendar calculations. All of this was so amazing and useful that it's hard to imagine today how such complex functions could fit into such a small device. A family of warriors from the 9th century. In Hungary, archaeologists discovered 3 warrior burials dating back to 900–2930. At first glance, these are ordinary graves from the early Middle Ages, but analysis revealed a detail that drastically changes the picture. All 3 were related through the male line, most likely a father and 2 sons. The burial inventory indicates a high status: a saber, a bow with a quiver, decorated harness, silver and gold elements of clothing, and dozens of coins. One of the young men died at 17 or 18, the other even earlier, and the eldest died at around 30 years old. All 3 mainly ate meat, which confirms their belonging to the military elite. The coins found in the graves come from northern Italy and date back to the reign of King Berengar. This aligns with Hungarian military campaigns to the west, where the family likely acquired their loot. The burial reflects a strong military lineage connected to origin, campaigns, and power. The weapons, jewelry, and inventory suggest elite status and involvement in additional campaigns. The coincidence of dates, kinship through the male line, and the nature of the burials identify a family integrated into the military structure of the early state. A canopy of gold. Recently, Mexican scientists invested 9.5 million pesos in acquiring 3 unique documents from the late 16th century. This investment opened a new chapter in history, providing valuable information about the period of the Spanish arrival in the lands of modern Mexico. These are the codices of San Andrés Tetepilco, created at the turn of the 16th and 17th centuries, which vividly illustrate the events of that time, including the era of the rule of Izcuatl, the 4th ruler of Tenochtitlan, and founder of the Aztec Empire, and the arrival of Hernán Cortés. These rare codices were purchased for the National Library of Anthropology and History. Thanks to the efforts and support of individuals and organizations, a payment of 9.5 million pesos made it possible to return them from private hands to public ownership. Analysis showed that the codices are made from amate, a traditional bark paper using natural dyes, which highlights the high craftsmanship of their creators. The authenticity of the documents was confirmed thanks to joint work with experts from various scientific institutions. The San Andrés Tetepilco codices stand out among other artifacts due to their unique combination of indigenous traditions and European influence. They contain texts in the Nahuatl and Spanish languages, written in the Latin alphabet. This treasure provides an opportunity to delve deeper into the study and understanding of a key period in the region's history. The tunnel beneath the Sphinx. We are setting out in search of the lost library of the ages, the Hall of Records, which is believed to be hidden right beneath the Great Sphinx in Egypt. The American medium Edgar Cayce and other mystery enthusiasts are convinced that it is in the labyrinth beneath the Sphinx's paws. In the mysterious Hall of Records, knowledge of astronomy, alchemy, medicine, and even magic is hidden. Researchers are still not sure whether it is real or not. The secrets of the pharaohs, encrypted in the hieroglyphs in the Pyramid of Teti, indicate that knowledge really was passed from hand to hand. These were like funeral gifts. But where is that very library where all this knowledge is kept? Edgar Cayce, during his trance, spoke about a hall of records where the knowledge of ancient cultures is hidden. He claimed that the entrance to the hall begins at the right front paw of the Sphinx, but it has never been found. Bronze heads of Ife. The bronze heads from Ife were created between the 12th and 15th centuries in what is now Nigeria. These sculptures were made using the lost wax casting method and are distinguished by their high accuracy in depicting facial proportions. On the surface, you can see fine lines, repeating scars, decorations, and elements of headdresses. The holes on the tops of the heads indicate the installation of crowns or other symbols of authority. Most researchers associate these heads with rulers or ritual images of the elite. Their production required temperature control, high-quality alloys, and complex molds. The findings demonstrate advanced metallurgy and a stable artistic tradition that existed in Ife long before contact with Europe. These heads were not portraits in the modern sense, but they recorded a person's status and sacred role. A message from extraterrestrials. Easter Island, lost in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean, became famous for its giant moai stone statues and the mysterious tablets with rongorongo inscriptions. These ancient tablets, covered with strange hieroglyphs, still remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries. Scientists believe that rongorongo is the script of the Rapa Nui civilization, which flourished on the island until the 18th century. The history of their discovery begins in 1864, when the French missionary Eugene Einer first noticed the wooden tablets covered with unusual signs. The tablets were made from toramiro wood, which grows on the island, and could be found in almost every home. However, soon most of these artifacts disappeared due to internal wars and destruction. About 25 tablets have survived, and their study revealed a unique writing style resembling an inverted boustrophodon. This method of recording symbols was previously found only among the Incas. The tablets depict figures of animals, plants, and anthropomorphic beings. Scientists suggest that these symbols might have been used to record rituals and myths. Of particular interest is the similarity between rongorongo and other ancient scripts. Some signs resemble the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt, India, as well as the symbols of the Arab civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley. Parallels have been noted between Kuna Indian scripts from Central America and Sumatra Island drawings, leading to theories about ancient transoceanic cultural connections. Attempts to decipher rongorongo are still ongoing, but so far these writings have not been fully understood. One of the theories is that it describes rituals involving sacrifices to the gods. Another hypothesis, more fantastical, suggests an extraterrestrial origin for these symbols, hinting at contact with alien civilizations. Otherwise, how could people living on different continents in those distant times have similar writing systems, while we today, despite having countless connections through phones, satellites, and the internet, still speak different languages? The mystery of rongorongo remains unsolved, but its study continues to inspire scientists and enthusiasts around the world. The sword in the stone. Everyone knows the legend of the sword in the stone, a fairy tale, a myth, a symbol of power. But in Italy, there is a place where this myth physically exists. In the Tuscan chapel at Monte Siepi, it has been there for 80 years. A real iron sword sticks out of the stone. Not a replica or a decoration, but an actual blade from the 12th century. It is associated with a knight who suddenly renounced violence and plunged his sword into the rock as a sign of giving up his former life. For a long time, it was believed to be a fake made for pilgrims, until metal analysis showed that the blade is truly medieval, and radar detected a cavity under the stone, possibly a burial site. The strangest thing is that in another story, the tale of King Arthur and the sword in the stone appears only after this Italian legend. And now the question is being asked more and more often. What if it wasn't the myth that created the artifact, but the artifact that created the myth, the origin of everything? The clay sculpture of the seated mother goddess from Balochistan, Pakistan, belongs to the Bronze Age and dates back to around 2500-2000 before Common Era. This artifact, measuring only 8.6 cm by 2.9 cm, is kept in the collection of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. The sculpture depicts the Mother Goddess, a symbol of fertility and motherhood. A distinctive feature is the detailed depiction of the hairstyle in the form of wavy curls, which may symbolize vitality and protection. The large breasts and hips emphasize the cult of the feminine principle, which was common in ancient cultures associated with agriculture. Of particular interest is the similarity of this sculpture to similar artifacts found in other regions, such as Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. There are suggestions about the ritual purpose of the sculpture. It was probably used in ceremonies related to the fertility of the earth and women. A more mystical interpretation hints at a connection with ancient cosmic cults, where the figure could have symbolized the link between celestial and earthly forces, serving as a mediator between worlds. An ancient totem of a nocturnal bird. On Hontoon Island in the St. Johns River in Florida, a unique artifact was found. An ancient carved owl figure, the only one of its kind east of the Mississippi. This 3-meter sculpture, believed to be between 700 and 800 years old, was carved from a single piece of pine and is thought to have once guarded the island's shore. In 1955, Victor Robka accidentally came across this totem while crossing the river. Today, a replica of the owl stands in the same place on Hontoon Island, which has become a state park. The original is kept at the National Museum of Fort Carillon in Jacksonville, and a fiberglass replica serves as a reminder of the ancient heritage. In addition to the owl totem, similar images of an otter and a pelican were found here, indicating a rich spiritual culture and the cultural life of the indigenous peoples. The artifact was originally attributed to the Timucua people, but there is another hypothesis that it was created by the little-known Mayaka tribe, who spoke a different language. The exact function of the totem is unknown, but there are some assumptions. Some consider it a clan symbol, others a religious object or a boundary marker. The details of the carving are striking. 2 eyes, both human and owl-like, and 5 claws instead of the usual 4. It's possible that the owl was used in shamanic rituals, since in Native American myths it is often associated with the spirit of the night and as a protector of shamans. An untouched tomb. Just 30 kilometers from Cairo, archaeologists discovered an ancient untouched tomb that is 4,400 years old. This amazing discovery was made in the famous Saqqara necropolis. The tomb was built for a high-ranking priest who served under a pharaoh of the 5th dynasty and his family. You can tell that his life was full. On the walls, there are images of people making wine, playing musical instruments, sailing boats, and hunting. The tomb building is impressive, its interior decorated with large painted statues and imposing inscriptions that reveal the names of the priest's wife and mother. Archaeologists have already started exploring 5 burial shafts inside the tomb, and we still have much to learn about ancient life in Egypt. Traces of artificial poison. We are used to thinking that the first humans hunted in a rough and primitive way. Stone, strength, luck. But in South Africa, arrows have been found that completely break this picture. Stone arrowheads about 60,000 years old have preserved traces of poison. Not accidental, not natural, but artificially prepared. Analysis showed the presence of toxic alkaloids from the plant Bufondisdicha, which is deadly even in small doses. This sap is sticky. You need to know how to extract it, process it, and apply it so that it stays on the stone. The poison didn't kill instantly, but it turned even a minor wound into a death sentence, allowing the hunter to simply follow the trail until the prey fell. This means that people didn't just know the plants, they understood the dosage, the timing, and the effects. Such knowledge doesn't appear by accident and doesn't disappear in a single generation. Essentially, this is a technology that was used for tens of thousands of years, long before cities, metal, and writing. And if that's what hunting looked like, then the question arises, what else have we underestimated about people we've gotten used to thinking of as primitive? The Pacific Pile Carpet. The discovery of the Pacific Carpet in 1949 in one of the burial mounds of the ancient Pacific culture in the Altai Republic was a real sensation. This is not only the oldest known pile carpet, but also a priceless historical artifact that demonstrates the high level of craftsmanship of that era. An expedition from the Institute of Archaeology of the Academy of Sciences of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, led by Sergei Rudenko, made the discovery. Study of Pazyryk culture burial mounds began in the 19th century. After the carpet was discovered, archaeologists conducted a thorough stylistic and artistic analysis of it, studying everything from the yarn to the weaving technique. Comparing the details of the carpet with known ornaments of art objects from that time made it possible to conclude that its origin was not Altai, but most likely from the Near East or Central Asia. Sergei Rudenko also noted that as early as the Achaemenid era in Persia, pile carpets were produced, which were used not only in everyday life but also as a symbol of power and wealth, highlighting their significance in the culture and art of that time. The tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, amazed the entire world with its luxurious artifacts and complex ritual architecture. This discovery changed all of archaeology and became part of Egypt's national identity. What is so special, so unique about Tutankhamun, the young king who ruled for less than 10 years? The main thing is the circumstances of his discovery. His tomb was hidden under 150,000 tons of stones in a rocky gorge called the Valley of the Kings. Many thought that all the tombs there had already been found and emptied, and Tutankhamun himself was a little-known pharaoh. But one inconspicuous place turned out to be a real surprise. That's where Tutankhamun's tomb was found. In the first room that the archaeologists opened, valuable items were placed haphazardly, as if after an urgent restoration. But even such chaotic arrangement couldn't overshadow their magnificence. "Amazing!" exclaimed the archaeologist when he first looked inside. "Strange animals, statues, and golden shine everywhere." Since its discovery, Tutankhamun has become a symbol of Egypt. Now more than 5,000 treasures from his tomb are the main exhibit of the new Grand Egyptian Museum. And although his reign was short, he became world famous thanks to the amazing and perfectly preserved condition of his tomb. Even before the tomb was opened, Carter experienced an incident that seemed unremarkable at first glance. The thing is, during the excavations, Carter was accompanied by a pet, a small canary. And then one day, a cobra got into the scientist's dwelling and ate the bird. The archaeologist himself didn't pay any attention to this, but his servants, who were locals, saw it as a sign of impending trouble. The cobra is one of the symbols of the Egyptian pharaohs. Message in a bottle. Norwegian archaeologist Jakob Bredesen was shocked when he discovered a message in a bottle that had been buried in the ground for more than 150 years. The discovery was made during excavations of an ancient Viking cemetery. The message was left by archaeologist Anders Lorange in 1874 when he first explored this burial mound. Archaeologists had not opened Viking burial mounds in Norway for more than 100 years, and it's incredible that they decided to excavate this one again. The place where the bottle was found belongs to the legendary King Outbjorn, who was buried with the largest Viking ship in the world. The Norwegian Ministry of Cultural Heritage initiated the excavation to nominate the burial mound for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage status. Inside the bottle, they found a note left by Lorange, 2 19th century coins, his business card, and a letter. The translation of the text on the note reads, "This burial mound was excavated in 1874. Fallen warriors are buried here. They were burned. Along with the ship, weapons, and ornaments, 26 shields, 2 swords, an axe, numerous arrows, and other artifacts were found. All the finds were transferred to the Bergen Museum." The burial mound became famous due to the large number of preserved artifacts, which confirms the traditions of Viking funeral rituals, who often sent their warriors on their final journey on ships with weapons and armor. The Vikings were seafarers and conquerors from Scandinavia who explored and captured coastal territories from the 8th to the 11th century. Some scholars believe that they may have been the first Europeans to reach North America. The oldest doors in Rome, the bronze doors of the Pantheon in Rome, were cast during the reign of Emperor Hadrian around 115 AD and remain in place to this day. Each leaf is about 7.6 meters high and more than 2 meters wide. The structure is made of solid bronze and designed for precise weight balancing. The hinges, fittings, and proportions allowed the doors to be used daily without additional mechanisms. The surface has preserved traces of time, but the geometry and functionality have remained unchanged. These doors were originally created as part of an architectural ensemble, not as a decorative element. Their production required large casting molds, precise calculations, and access to significant resources. The doors continue to serve their function, having been in active use for almost 2,000 years. Chinese Star Atlas. In 1907, a unique discovery was made in the caves of Dunhuang, China, a star atlas created in the mid-7th century. This ancient document is considered the oldest known astronomical chart. The atlas reflects the deep understanding Chinese astronomers had of the structure of the celestial sphere, significantly surpassing the knowledge available in Europe at that time. The map from Dunhuang is striking in its accuracy. It contains images not only of major, but also smaller constellations, as well as faint stars that remained unnoticed on Western star charts for a long time. Unlike Western traditions, where stars were connected into mythological figures, Chinese astronomers used simple imaginary lines to group stars. This made it possible to maintain scientific rigor and avoid subjective interpretations. The atlas represents an important stage in the development of astronomy, showing how far the ancient Chinese had advanced in exploring the cosmos. It is possible that this map was used not only for astronomical observations, but also for predictions and navigation, which made it a tool of strategic importance. Some researchers believe that such precise knowledge of the starry sky could have been connected with observations of unusual objects in the sky. The legends of ancient China are full of references to celestial chariots and luminous phenomena, which gives reason to associate such star atlases with an interest in extraterrestrial phenomena. A double hoard of Viking treasures. Archaeologists have found an amazing hoard of ancient silver coins and jewelry in Denmark, which reveals secrets about the life of the famous Viking king Harald Bluetooth. This hoard was found on the Jutland Peninsula near the ancient ring fortress that Harald himself built around the year 980. A total of about 300 silver items were discovered, including 50 coins and pieces of jewelry. It turned out that the treasures were hidden in 2 different places under buildings that no longer exist. Archaeologists thought that the person who buried the hoard deliberately divided it into parts so as not to lose everything at once. By the way, the treasures were discovered by a woman using a metal detector. Most of the items found are chopped silver or hack silver. These are pieces of silver jewelry that could be weighed and sold. But among the hoard, there were also silver coins from Arab and Germanic countries, as well as from Denmark. The Danish coins with a cross are especially interesting. They were minted during the reign of Harald Bluetooth. Harald was one of the first Viking kings to adopt Christianity, and with the help of this new faith, he wanted to unite the warring Viking tribes in Denmark. No one knows for sure why he got the nickname Bluetooth. Maybe he had a bad tooth that was blue-black in color. This name is still well known today because it gave its name to the Bluetooth wireless communication standard. Harald united Denmark and even ruled part of Norway. He was king until his death in 985 or 986, when he was succeeded on the throne by his son Sven, the bearded dragon Kofun. In Japan, they kept a discovery for a long time, the significance of which has only now become clear. We're talking about fragments of 5th century armor that were discovered several decades ago in the Tokasaki area. A re-examination showed that this is not just a decoration, but part of a protective element, a curved neck plate made of iron and covered with gilded bronze. The surface is decorated with an open-work image of a dragon. The details are fastened with rivets. The lines are made with high precision, and the metal itself is crafted as if the item was made for a specific person. Analysis showed similarities with items from other Kofun period burial mounds, indicating the existence of workshops that worked for the elite and followed a unified artistic language. The weight and construction of the armor make it unsuitable for combat. Researchers believe that such elements were used during ceremonies, funerals, or diplomatic events. In the visual culture of East Asia, the dragon was associated with power, protection, and the legitimacy of the ruler. This image here is not decorative, but a symbol of status. The fragments originated from large burial mounds of regional rulers. The size of the burials and quality of artifacts show a hierarchical society with advanced craftsmanship. What we see here is not a single object, but material evidence of how power in early Japan was established through metal, symbol, and form. Buddha in Nirvana underground. At the site of the ruins of the 7th century Buddhist monastery and temple of Vajrayana, archaeologists discovered fragments of frescoes, stupas, and reliefs depicting Buddha, bodhisattvas, and other deities. Unfortunately, many of them were disfigured and partially destroyed even in ancient times. One of the most famous discoveries was a 13-meter statue of Buddha in Nirvana. It was made from paksa blocks, compressed clay that was used in ancient times to create large sculptures. The statue was found in a ruined state, so it had to be assembled. After the excavation, the frescoes were divided into 72 pieces and transported to the Museum of Antiquities of Tajikistan for restoration. Today, the original Buddha in Nirvana can be seen there, while its copy is displayed in the National Museum of Tajikistan. These discoveries not only reveal important pages in the history of Buddhism in Central Asia, but also highlight the significance of Vajrayana as a center of spiritual culture in the ancient region. A mold for making golden images. In the central part of Falsa Island, located in the southeast of Denmark, an enthusiast with a metal detector made an incredible discovery that could not only rewrite the history of the region, but also shed light on a little-known page of Danish history. Leonard Larsen, walking in the rain in search of artifacts, heard a faint signal from his device. After digging up the ground, he discovered a small, unusual object, an ancient matrix for making golden images, which were presumably used in cult rituals as offerings to the gods. According to archaeologists Lowland and Falster, this find may be connected to an ancient center of power or religious activity. The matrix, measuring only 2 centimeters, dates back to between 500 and 700 AD, a time before the Viking Age began. Such artifacts are incredibly rare. Only 28 similar matrices have been found in Scandinavia, and none south of the Baltic Sea. The matrix from Falster depicts a person in elaborate clothing, standing with their arms down and palms facing outward. This gesture is found in both pre-Christian and Christian cultures and symbolizes either submission or revelation. The specifics of the depiction remain a mystery, as it is still unknown whether the matrix shows a man or a woman. It could be a figure of a king expressing devotion to the deity, or, on the contrary, God appearing to a person. The mysterious ornament of Alfred. In 1693 in Somerset County, a farmer accidentally came across an object that changed historians' perception of early medieval England. Under a layer of soil, a plow uncovered a unique artifact, the Alfred jewel, a piece of jewelry dating back to the 9th century. This discovery is striking for its craftsmanship, a piece made of gold, enamel, and quartz, decorated with an intricate design and the inscription, "Alfred ordered me to be made." The artifact is associated with the legendary King Alfred the Great, known as one of the most enlightened rulers of England. It is believed that the ornament may have been part of a scepter or a pointer used for reading sacred texts. This instrument symbolizes the union of power, wisdom, and Alfred's pursuit of enlightenment. The connection with UFOs and the mysteries of the past becomes intriguing if you delve into the symbolism of the object. Some researchers suggest that the intricate design of the ornament and its shiny finish might have been inspired by sightings of unusual celestial phenomena. In those times, comets and lights in the sky were perceived as messages from the gods or even extraterrestrial civilizations. The most mystical mountain, Mount Roraima, rises above the jungles of the Guiana Highlands to almost 2,500 meters. Its summit is a flat plateau with sheer cliffs dropping down hundreds of meters. These cliffs make Roraima almost isolated from the surrounding world. The ascent is possible only by a single slope, and the journey to the summit takes several days. The geological age of Roraima is estimated at about 2 billion years, making it one of the oldest preserved surfaces on the planet. The rocks that make up the plateau were formed long before the appearance of complex life, long before plants emerged onto land. Everything that happens here today unfolds on a foundation that existed even before the Earth as we know it. Almost daily rains create a unique environment on the summit. Water flows down the edges of the plateau in waterfalls, seeps into cracks, nourishes the soil, and forms a closed ecosystem. Plants and microorganisms live here that can't be found anywhere else. Some carnivorous plants, frogs, and insects have evolved in complete isolation, following their own unique path of development. For the region's indigenous peoples, Roraima has always been a powerful place. In their myths, the mountain was seen as a remnant of the world tree, a piece of an ancient order disrupted long ago. These beliefs did not arise from geology, but from a sense of remoteness and scale. The plateau is perceived as a separate world, existing according to its own rules. Modern science describes Roraima through plate tectonics, erosion, and climate. But even with precise explanations, there remains a sense of a place that has survived almost everything. Continents shifted, oceans disappeared, species appeared and went extinct, but the summit continued to exist, changing so slowly that human time here almost loses its meaning. The tomb of Santa Claus. In Turkey, archaeologists discovered a sarcophagus that may be the tomb of St. Nicholas, the prototype of Santa Claus. The discovery was made in the Church of St. Nicholas in Demre, Antalya, during excavations that have been ongoing since 1989. The burial was found in an annex next to the church. The sarcophagus, about 2 meters long, is made of local limestone and was partially buried in the ground at a depth of up to 2 meters. Its design with a raised sloping lid resembles other tombs in the region. Scientists suggest that the church was built on the burial site of Nikolai the Miracle Worker, Archbishop of Myra, known for his good deeds. It was his generosity and secret gifts that became the basis for the legends about Santa Claus. The cult collection Missa in Agenda Defunctorum from 1733 is a rare artifact from the early 18th century created for conducting requiem masses. This unique collection, used by priests for reading prayers at the altar, stands out not only for its content but also for the dark symbolism of its design. The book's binding is decorated with an image of a skull and crossbones, emphasizing its purpose and rituals related to death and remembrance. The collection includes chants, works, and texts of the Latin liturgy that were used for the repose of the souls of the deceased. The skull symbolism on the cover reflects the contemporary view of the transience of existence and a reminder of the inevitability of death, motifs characteristic of the Baroque era. Such books were works of art, symbolizing the mystique and grandeur of Catholic rituals. It is known that bindings with such symbolism were often made specifically for churches or noble families who wanted to emphasize their connection to religious tradition. This collection was probably used in a monastery or chapel, serving as a reminder of the need to pray for the repose of souls. This Chinese status item is a table screen from the late period of Imperial China and was used in the study of a scholar, official, or nobleman. It is made of dark green jade, set in a carved wooden stand decorated with lacquer and inlay. The surface of the jade is covered with hand-applied hieroglyphs. Such screens were not used for privacy but as objects of contemplation. They were placed on or near the writing desk. The texts on the stone could be philosophical sayings, poems, or reminders of duty and self-discipline. Jade in Chinese culture symbolized purity, resilience, and moral strength, qualities essential for an educated person. The creation of such an item required the involvement of several craftsmen: a stone carver, a calligrapher, a lacquerer, and a carpenter. It was a status symbol. The Calgante disc, an object called the Calgante disc, kept in the Rafael Larco Herrera Archaeological Museum in the capital of Peru, Lima, may be evidence that people in ancient times knew what the arms of a galaxy looked like. This artifact, which is believed to have been created about 2,000 years ago, looks like a spiral galaxy. But here's the catch. The number of arms on this disk does not match the number of arms in our galaxy. If we assume that the disk really depicts a galaxy, it calls into question many things we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. At the same time, the Calgante disc remains a mysterious artifact, raising more questions than it answers. Unidentified flying object sighting. In 1965, at an Argentine naval base in Antarctica, in the middle of the night, nearly 20 people watched the sky in amazement. At an altitude of 15 to 20 kilometers, they saw an unidentified flying object. This mysterious object was glowing. Bodybuilding minus something about integrity, like they managed to throw it in time. While maintaining the camp, Odysseus went to the St. Petersburg remarket at Brześć. It turned out that man was a constant star. 19 dead, it was them, the fighters, with them. About 400 sailors and soldiers died. The entire expedition ended after 3 months, and all the materials became strictly classified. Richard Byrd, the head of the expedition, talked about it and ended up in a psychiatric hospital. The Trumpet of Boudicca. In England, archaeologists unearthed a treasure that is rare even by Roman-era standards. Among the metal objects was an almost complete carnix, a Celtic war trumpet, an instrument used to start an attack. Such trumpets were made of bronze, extended vertically upward, and decorated with animal heads with open jaws, most often a boar. Their sound was not musical, but frightening and sharp, designed for psychological effect. Only 3 such finds are known in Britain, and just a handful across all of Europe. This carnix dates back to the 1st century AD and was found precisely in the region where the Iceni tribe, led by Queen Boudicca, rose up against Rome. Along with the horn, the hoard contained shield bosses, a military standard, and other pieces of weaponry, which indicates a military context rather than a random burial. The Romans often took carnixes as trophies and melted them down, which is why so few of these instruments have survived. Here, the horn was lifted from the ground in one piece and scanned with tomography before being disassembled in the lab. This discovery shows that ancient wars used not just force and numbers, but also sound, fear, and power displays. Long before the concept of psychological pressure on the battlefield, the first accurate depiction of the moon. The early 17th century became an era of great discoveries in astronomy, thanks to the invention of the telescope. The moon, previously thought to be a smooth celestial body, appeared before scientists in a completely new light. In 1609, Galileo Galilei used a telescope for the first time to study the moon, discovering numerous craters, mountains, and valleys on its surface. His observations became a true revolution in the perception of celestial bodies. Galileo recorded his discoveries in a series of detailed drawings that for the first time depicted the real topography of the moon. These images were included in his work, Starry Messenger, published in 1610. Thanks to these sketches, it became clear that the surface of the moon is much more complex than ancient philosophers had assumed, and consists of irregularities resembling mountains on Earth. Interestingly, Galileo was not the first to point a telescope at the moon. Thomas Harriot, an English astronomer, began his observations of the moon back in 1609, but his drawings were less detailed and not as widely known. It was Galileo who had a key influence on astronomy. The discovery of the moon as a rough and dynamic object inspired many generations of researchers. Some ufologists believe that Galileo's drawings might have been the first images of anomalies on the surface of the moon. This interest continues today, giving rise to many theories about the possible extraterrestrial origin of some lunar features. A grand discovery in Egypt. Archaeologists have found an ancient tomb with 11 sealed burials near Luxor, Egypt, in the South Asasif necropolis. The tomb dates back to the Middle Kingdom and likely served as a family burial site for several generations during the 12th and early 13th dynasties. The discovery was made possible thanks to a modern expedition of Egyptian and American scientists. This is the first Middle Kingdom burial found in South Asasif, which expands our understanding of this necropolis and its connection to the Theban necropolis. Because of ancient floods, many wooden coffins have surfaced, but the decorations remain intact, including amulets and necklaces made of amethyst, agate, and faience. One of the unique items was a fertility figurine made of bluish-green faience, decorated with drawings and featuring grooves for attaching hair made of clay beads. A square sacrificial plate was also found, depicting symbolic offerings such as a bull's head, bread, and meat, which were possibly used in rituals. The remains of 5 women, 2 men, and 3 children were placed in wooden coffins oriented from north to south. Jewelry was preserved in the women's burials, while the children and one of the men were buried without any. The other man was found with a necklace made of 40 faience beads and an amulet shaped like a hippopotamus head. This discovery is especially important in the context of the revival of tourist interest in Egypt, where historical treasures are once again attracting attention. a Roman military factory. On the banks of the River Wear, near modern-day Sunderland, archaeologists discovered a concentration of objects that immediately changed the status of the site. In the soil and in the riverbed, more than 800 sharpening stones have been recorded, which Roman soldiers and craftsmen used to sharpen weapons and tools. For the British Isles, this is an unprecedented quantity. The stones are layered, most of them are damaged, and the nature of the cracks and chips corresponds to the stages of processing the blanks. Geological analysis revealed the raw material came from sandstone on the river's northern bank. After extraction, the blanks were moved across the river. Where did this occur? In the same area, 11 stone anchors were found. Such a number indicates regular river traffic and the loading of heavy cargo. The river connected the site with coastal routes, along which the products were distributed further throughout the Roman province. The discovery identifies this site as a production center integrated into the military and economic system of Rome, where infrastructure operated to supply the army with expendable but essential tools. A 70,000-year-old bracelet. Scientists believe that this bracelet, which is 65,000 to 70,000 years old, was created by Denisovans, an ancient species of hominid closely related to, but distinct from, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. If this is confirmed, the date of the bracelet's creation will have to be pushed back by 30,000 years. The bracelet was discovered in Siberia, and it may change our understanding of ancient human development. It is already forcing scientists to reconsider the known levels of technology. For example, the bracelet has this hole made by drilling or sawing under the ice of a lake. In total, more than 400 subglacial lakes have already been found in Antarctica, and each of them has been isolated from the rest of the world and the atmosphere for millions of years. And this means that life there could be completely unique and ancient. Scientists have already drilled into 2 small lakes and discovered microbial life, but what happens in the larger lakes remains a mystery because there is no sunlight there, so microbes cannot use photosynthesis. For life to be more diverse, the water in the lake must move so that nutrients and oxygen are evenly distributed across the surface of the Earth. This is done by wind and sun beneath the ice. Geothermal heat rising from the Earth's interior can serve as a source of warmth and movement. This heat is capable of creating currents in subglacial lakes, mixing the water and making it more hospitable for life. The most unique castle on the planet, Safra Castle, is located on a rocky cliff in the Caldera Mountains in the Spanish province of Guadalajara. The plateau is about 1,400 meters high, and access to the top is possible only by a narrow path. Such a location made this place strategically important long before the appearance of medieval walls. Archaeological evidence indicates human presence here as far back as the Bronze and Iron Ages, which suggests that this spot on the landscape was used for a long time, not just during the Visigothic fortress period. And later Muslim rulers used this height as an observation and defensive point. The stone castle, in its familiar form, began to be built in the 12th and 13th centuries, during the period between the Christian kingdoms and the Muslim territories. The architecture blends with the landscape. Walls and towers are built into the rock with minimal decoration. After the completion of the Reconquista, the military significance of Safra gradually disappeared, and by the end of the 15th century, the fortress was abandoned. In the 20th century, the castle was in a ruined state until it was purchased by a private owner who spent decades restoring it. Today, Safra is widely known to the public thanks to the television series Game of Thrones, where its image was used as the prototype for the Tower of Joy. But the fortress itself is an example of how the same place retains its significance over millennia, regardless of eras and cultures. The mysterious cave. Scientists discovered a mysterious object in Antarctica through Google Maps. It's not just an object, it's a cave hidden beneath the glaciers. Scientists published a YouTube video showing the vault of this cave. Some believe that the cave could have been man-made. The video shows a perfectly shaped vault, 23 meters high and 76 meters wide. Scientists noticed strange paths and steps at the entrance to the cave, which gives reason to think about their artificial origin. Others think that this is a secret facility for UFOs or a top-secret military base. There are also those who believe that these are the remains of architecture from an ancient civilization. Official science remains silent for now, but everyone agrees that with global warming Antarctica will reveal many more secrets. A ship carrying a cargo of Roman glass was found by archaeologists at the bottom of the sea between the islands of Caprea and Corsica, a sunken Roman ship. But this is not an ordinary ship. It sank into the depths. With tons of glass on board, both processed and raw, luxurious glass plates, bottles, bowls, and even cosmetic vessels. That's what's now lying on the seafloor, and this is only the second such discovery in history. The ship was presumably on its final voyage at the end of the 1st or the beginning of the 2nd century AD. Its wreckage was found back in 2012 at a depth of 350 meters, but research only began after France and Italy decided to join forces using the underwater robot Arthur, which can explore depths of up to 2.5 kilometers, record high-resolution video, and even bring finds to the surface. Researchers plan to thoroughly study the ship and its contents. In the first week, Arthur discovered numerous glass objects, as well as 2 large bronze basins and several amphorae. The analysis of these artifacts allows scientists to refine the dating of the shipwreck and create a more accurate picture of its route. Apparently, the ship departed from a port in the Middle East, possibly from Lebanon or Syria, and was headed for the French coast of Provence. All the discovered items will be delivered to the laboratory for more detailed research. Funerary bread of ancient Egypt. In the foundation offering of the tomb of Hatshepsut, archaeologists discovered bread that had been lying there for about 3,500 years. These items date back to the New Kingdom era and were placed in the foundation as part of the ritual that accompanied the construction of sacred spaces in ancient Egypt. Such offerings included food, vessels, and tools, which were sealed into the building at the foundation level, connecting it with the gods and the fate of the deceased. Bread symbolized provision, order, and continuous existence. It was not meant for consumption and was not considered a food supply. Its shape and structure were preserved thanks to isolation and the dry climate. Analysis showed coarse grain, milling, and impurities, which are characteristic of bread intended for ritual purposes. Mysterious tablets. This golden tablet is one of many unique discoveries made by Serbian archaeologists in the ancient city of Viminacium, located in what is now Serbia. Viminacium was an important Roman city and military camp that flourished from the 1st to the 4th centuries AD. However, the artifacts that have been discovered, such as these tablets, indicate the existence of much older and more mysterious customs here. Strange symbols are engraved on the tablets, unlike the familiar Latin or Greek letters, and their meaning remains a mystery to researchers. These signs could be part of an unknown language, a code, or magical symbols that were used in religious rituals. Since the tablets are made of precious metals such as gold and silver, it can be assumed that they held special significance for those who created them. Perhaps they were amulets or talismans that protected the owner or brought good luck. Despite all the efforts of archaeologists, the mysterious symbols have not yet been deciphered, and they remain one of the greatest mysteries of Viminacium. Crystal reliquary. This reliquary was created in France between 1175 and represents a work of art and religious craftsmanship. It is made of gold and silver and decorated with rock crystal, which adds transparency and lightness to it. Inside, relics of saints or other valuable items could be kept, which held great significance for believers. Such reliquaries often became objects of veneration. They were displayed in churches and monasteries, where they attracted pilgrims from all corners. The design of the reliquary itself is especially interesting. It is made in the form of a miniature building with decorative arches, columns, and small figures of saints, symbolizing the idea of a spiritual temple. A transparent cylinder made of rock crystal allowed believers to see the contents, which strengthened their faith in the holiness of the preserved relics. The solar mini clock near the castle in the city of Marburg, Germany. Students discovered a real treasure. A pocket solar clock made of wood and bronze from the Middle Ages. This is an amazing find that arouses great interest among archaeologists. This device, about the size of a matchbox, could have belonged to monks from the Brotherhood of Common Life, a Catholic order that lived in this area until 1527. Today, Marburg University, the first Protestant university in Germany, is located on this site. Students from this university discovered this amazing clock during summer field excavations. The head of the excavation, Professor Felix Teichner, called this find sensational. People in the past had to combine knowledge in astronomy and mathematics with the craftsmanship of artisans to create such an amazing device. This academic year was especially important for Marburg, as the city celebrated its 800th anniversary. A phallic amulet. In Sicilian Gela, archaeologists came across an item that's hard to imagine being used at work. A small bone stylus, only 13 centimeters long, was found in a cultural layer dating back to the 5th century before Christ. Such items were usually used by potters to draw lines on wet clay, but this one was clearly not made for hands covered in clay. The bone-carved stylus is so beautifully decorated that you'd rather admire it than use it. At the top, there's a male head that investigators associate with Dionysus, and below, a phallic symbol carved without any hints or embarrassment. Today, such an item would be hidden in a drawer marked 18+, but for the ancient Greeks, there was nothing forbidden about it. It was a language of protection. Such images were kept in homes, workshops, and at entrances. They served as talismans and as a request for favor from the forces on which the outcome of work depended. The material itself reveals the item's purpose. Bone is fragile, and the delicate carving can't withstand regular use with wet clay. This stylus didn't scratch the mold, it preserved the process. Most likely it was kept somewhere in the workshop within reach, but not actually used. A tomb that no one was looking for. In Saqqara, right next to the pyramid of Userkaf, a small tomb was found, squeezed between other structures. No paintings, no bas-reliefs, just a limestone sarcophagus, a few vessels, and a plaque with a name. According to the inscription, this is the son of the pharaoh, but everything around suggests otherwise. The burial is unmarked, invisible from outside, and even longtime workers had never heard of it. It feels like he wasn't just buried, but erased, as if something didn't go according to plan, as if he died at the wrong time, for the wrong reasons, or wasn't who he was supposed to be. No clear traces remain, but the lack of attention is itself a trace. Such discoveries are remembered not for who is buried, but because people tried to ignore them. The Eye of the Sahara. This geological structure was seen by astronauts in 1965, and that's where its name comes from. From the air, it looks like a giant eye surrounded by green circles. This is a dolerite sill intrusion, surrounded by sparse vegetation, which is a rare phenomenon for the desert. Cosmonauts even used it as a landmark, since it's the most noticeable structure in the Sahara. In the center of the formation, there are siliceous breccias, a special type of sedimentary rock. This indicates its ancient origin, which scientists estimate to be millions of years old, with the oldest ring being about 600 million years old. At first, it was thought to be the site of a meteorite impact, but this theory was not confirmed. Then scientists suggested that Galper Rishat has a geological origin. New research shows that this structure was formed under the influence of hydrothermal waters. One of the most unique features of the Eye of the Sahara is its ability to change color throughout the day, depending on thermal emission. And although there are still many debates and assumptions about the origin of this geological wonder, most modern scientists believe that it is the result of erosion after the uplift of a section of the Earth's crust. An ornament that is always hidden. Menuki are paired metal elements that were placed under the wrapping of a Japanese sword handle. Their main function was practical, to improve the grip of the hand on the weapon. However, over time, Menuki became an important part of the sword's visual and symbolic design. This particular piece is made in the shape of a shishi, a mythical lion dog that entered Japanese culture through China along with Buddhist iconography. The shishi was seen as a protector, warding off evil, offering protection, and bringing luck. Placing its image on a weapon enhanced the sword's sacred meaning and highlighted the owner's status. The work is distinguished by its high level of detail in the curls, the mane, the tense posture, and the expressive face. Such menuki were made for high-ranking samurai and were often commissioned from renowned craftsmen. It was not intended to be shown to outsiders. Most of the time, the The ornament was hidden under the wrapping, making the item personal, almost intimate, a symbol of the warrior's connection with his weapon and its protective power. Armor made of 6,000 scales. Archaeologists in China's Qingxi province made an amazing discovery in the tomb of Liu He, the ruler of Haihun from the Western Han Dynasty. They found a scale composite armor that is over 2,000 years old. This find not only demonstrates the advanced level of craftsmanship during the Han era, but is also fundamentally different from the typical single material armors of that time. According to the report from the Provincial Institute of Archaeology and Cultural Relics, the plates were made of lacquered iron, copper, and leather, with many of them being only 1 centimeter wide and 0.2 centimeters thick. The restoration took about 2 years. Specialists assembled about 6,000 pieces that were found stacked in the armory section of the tomb, next to swords and knives. According to Yan Jun, the leader of the excavation team, their arrangement and size demonstrate an incredible delicacy of craftsmanship that was previously unknown for the armor of the Haihun dynasty. A volcano that spews gold, Mount Erebus, the largest volcano in Antarctica, literally spits out the finest crystals of metallic gold into the air. Gold ranging from 0.1 to 20 micrometers is found in volcanic gases and up to 60 micrometers in the nearby snow. Interestingly, although other volcanoes are known for their gold emissions, Mount Erebus is the only one that releases gold in metallic form. Before you decide to go searching for gold in Antarctica, let me disappoint you. Mount Erebus emits only about 80 grams of gold per day. It's more of a geological curiosity than anything else, however. Knowing that volcanoes can concentrate metal may help geologists better locate gold deposits. A bag made from T-Rex. British scientists, together with designers, have created a material that imitates Tyrannosaurus skin. It's not just a reptile-like texture. They tried to recreate the exact structure that dinosaurs might have had 66 million years ago. The basis was fossilized scale imprints preserved on fossilized tracks. They studied the micro-relief, density, and arrangement of the cells, then applied the data to a 3D model, added reconstructed coloring, and prepared material samples. All this was done as part of an exhibition dedicated to extinct species, but the topic quickly went beyond the scientific field. One of the British brands presented the concept of a Tyrannosaurus Rex artificial leather bag. Of course, it wasn't actually sold, but the idea itself caused a stir. This is essentially an attempt not just to show a dinosaur, but to make it tangible, to turn an extinct predator into something you can hold in your hands. No one is planning to sew from real remains, but the idea itself is unexpected. The Archer's Ring. In ancient Hasankeyf in the southeast of modern-day Turkey, archaeologists found a rare item associated with power in the court. This is an archer's ring designed for the thumb, made of ivory and decorated with pearls, turquoise, and silver. Such rings protected the hand when shooting a bow, but this particular piece clearly went beyond a practical function. The find was discovered in the southeastern part of the Great Palace, a complex associated with the ruling elite of the Artukid dynasty, which controlled the region in the 12th and 13th centuries. The material speaks for itself. Ivory was expensive and hard to come by, pearls and turquoise required trade connections, and the silver inlays were crafted with great precision. This is not a training item and not field equipment. On average, in the centuries-old Islamic and Turkic tradition, archery was part of court culture associated with discipline, nobility, and the right to rule. Decorated rings were worn during ceremonies and public appearances, where every element of clothing was read as a sign of status. So far, archaeologists have not found a similar archer's ring with inlay and a Valkyrie pearl made of silver. In the Danish village of Herby, during a routine archaeological survey, a small figurine was found, only 3.5 centimeters, made of silver, but it's immediately clear that she is not an ordinary woman with a sword. In one hand, she holds a round shield, the other is extended downward. Her dress has fine folds, her hair is tied in a knot, and her face is focused. She is neither a deity, nor an ornament, nor a toy. She is armed. The find dates back to around the year 800, and she is the first of her kind discovered in Scandinavia. At first, scientists decided that this was a mythical Valkyrie, a messenger of the gods. But then other versions began to appear. Maybe she isn't a spirit at all, but a person? In Viking sagas, women are mentioned who fought were skalds, warriors, and seeresses. Some burials with weapons really did belong to women, as confirmed by DNA analyses. The figurine could have been part of a ritual staff, a personal talisman, or a depiction of a specific woman, someone who was respected and feared. In any case, the image of a strong-armed woman in the Viking Age is not a work of fiction. It's reality, just long hidden beneath layers of convenient assumptions. She says nothing, but her pose, her shield, and her sword have already said it all. The mysterious floating island. The floating island El Ojo in Argentina sparks many guesses and theories, from a haven for UFOs to a dwelling place for ancient spirits. However, scientists offer a more rational explanation for its existence, considering it the result of natural processes, erosion, and the movement of water masses. This mysterious round island is located in the marshy delta of the Paraná River. Its name translates as eye, due to its striking resemblance to a perfectly round eye when viewed from above. The island attracted attention in 2016 when Argentine director Sergio Neuspiller explored the area for the documentary film From a Bird's Eye View. El Ojo impresses with its shape, and the water around it, despite appearing black, is crystal clear, which is unusual for the murky waters of the delta. The island has a diameter of 118 meters, and its rotation around its axis is the result of the currents, which also polish the lake's shore, forming its perfect outlines. This process continues, and scientists believe that it explains the round shape of the island and the lake. El Ojo first appeared in satellite images about 20 years ago. Its origin is still shrouded in mystery, and it is still unknown how and when it separated from the mainland. The local residents, although they knew about its existence, preferred to avoid this place, believing that an ancient deity lived there. Some put forward theories about unidentified flying object attraction, or even Nazis, but there is no evidence for these versions. The hunger stones lie in the hand of the Elbe River, near the Czech town of Děčín, where boulders with carved inscriptions are found. They appear only in years of severe drought when the water level drops to critical marks. These stones are known as hunger stones, unique markers of climate disasters that have been used in Central Europe for centuries. Dates and short phrases are carved on the surface. Such marks recorded the moments when the river became shallow, navigation stopped, and crop failure became inevitable for the riverside towns. This meant rising prices, supply disruptions, and hunger. The earliest dates on the stones go back to the early 15th century, and the latest to the late 19th century. These are not symbols or decorations, but a practical memory of recurring crises. The stone remained in place, and new generations added their marks next to the previous ones, continuing the count. Similar objects are known in other regions of Europe as well. They record the connection between climate, the economy, and people's lives without interpretations or commentary. The stones remain silent most of the time and appear only when conditions become extreme. This is direct evidence of how nature entered history through the water level and the inscribed date. In the ancient glass workshop in the Czech village of Němčice, researchers found treasures of truly royal scale, thousands of gold coins, underwater huts, and even glass jewelry. Besides, and most interestingly, Němčice apparently had the oldest glass workshop north of the Alps. Archaeologists did not find tools for making glass, but they found many glass items at various stages of completion. This important discovery confirms the assumption about the existence of an ancient glass workshop in Němčice. They also discovered several more amber items, as well as buildings similar to those that were used for ritual purposes in Němčice. The findings suggest that this place was not just a workshop, but also an important site for rituals. On top of that, over the past 20 years, 2,000 gold and silver coins have been found here. This strengthens the confidence that Němčice was an important stop on the Amber Road in the 3rd to 2nd centuries before Christ, connecting settlements near the northern Baltic and Mediterranean seas. This place was discovered twice. In the south of Cyprus, archaeologists discovered the remains of an ancient sanctuary, a small building, stone foundations, traces of cult activity, and seemingly nothing unusual. Many such places have been found, But this time, there was one thing. This sanctuary had already been discovered many years ago and then forgotten again. The documentation about it was lost. It wasn't included on the map of active sites. There was no security, no signs, and no excavations. And now it has been rediscovered, and once again they have started to study it. Inside there is an altar, remains of burnt offerings, and fragments of figurines. Everything points to a local cult, probably worship of a fertility goddess or a local spirit. Nothing grandiose, but everything is arranged very precisely and calmly. It's clear that the place was important. The golden intimate ornament belongs to the Sino culture, which existed in the north of present-day Colombia before the arrival of the Spanish. It is made of high-purity gold and was intended to be worn in the intimate area. This fact puzzled researchers for a long time, but today it is seen as part of a complex system of bodily symbolism in Sino society. The jewelry was not just decorative items, but markers of status, age, and a person's stage of life. Gold played a special role here. It was not considered currency or a store of wealth, but was associated with the sun, fertility, and renewal. Jewelry placed in the area associated with procreation emphasized the vitality and social maturity of the owner. Such items are often found in the burials of noble people, which indicates their ritual significance. The manufacturing technology indicates a high level of metallurgy, lost wax casting, precise symmetry, and fine movable elements. Such ornaments were created individually and probably accompanied a person throughout their life. After death, they entered the burial context, affirming the status of the deceased in the other world. Cypriot Terracotta Army. In November 1929, priest Procopius from the village of Agia Irini near Morphu, while working in a field, accidentally came across a clay figurine of a person. Realizing the value of the find, he protected it from looting and informed the scholars. This is how the story of the Cypriot Terracotta Army began, a unique open-air sanctuary where about 2,000 clay statues were arranged in a semicircle around the altar. According to the Swedish Archaeological expedition, among the statues there were warriors in armor, chariots, figures of bulls, and even bronze miniatures. Professor Feodoros Mavroyanets dates the main findings to 5625 before Christ in Ukraine, pointing to details of clothing and the political situation of that time. In the Mediterranean, out of 2,000 discovered statues, 1,500 are now kept in the Stockholm Museum of Mediterranean and Near Eastern Antiquities, and the rest are in the Cyprus Museum in Nicosia. Most people in Cyprus view artifact removal as looting and want them returned home. Mummified penguins. Researchers from China discovered a cemetery of mummified penguins in Antarctica, and many of them were just chicks. At first, scientists thought that the penguins did not survive 2 periods of extreme precipitation. But after all, penguins live in Antarctica and are used to the cold and snow. So something here doesn't quite add up. Now, scientists suggest that climate change is to blame for these mass penguin deaths. In their opinion, increased humidity caused by global warming could have led to this tragedy. As it turned out, the penguins were not prepared for such conditions and died immediately. This happened twice, about 750 and 200 years ago. Scientists discovered this using radiocarbon dating, and it seems the penguins did not die immediately, but perished gradually. Artifacts that shouldn't be here. In the south of Israel, archaeologists excavated a site that, at first glance, didn't seem remarkable, but everything changed when they began to study the artifacts they found. In the ground, they found clay vessels and bronze items whose style doesn't match the local cultural tradition. The ornaments, shapes, even the composition of the alloy. All of this was more reminiscent of objects found nearby. There was neither a temple nor a permanent settlement, only fragments that seemed to have been brought here on purpose. It gives the impression that this place was used for rituals or temporary gatherings, possibly by nomadic tribes who had connections with distant cultures. Officially, the items are considered atypical for the region, but questions remain. Who brought them? Why? And why exactly here? These are just hypotheses for now, but the discovery stands out from the desert's usual history. An encounter with them ended in trouble. Northern peoples have legends about creatures whose encounters almost always ended in disaster. The Nenets called them Sihirtia, those who dig burrows. According to legend, they were a short people who lived in the hills. Their dwellings had an entrance from above, and they only came outside at night or in thick fog. During the day, it was impossible to see them, even if you walked right by. Random encounters are described in fragments. Hunters might spot a small woman the size of a child, hear strange sounds, or stumble upon a forgotten object. In one legend, a girl named Sihirtia, frightened by people, ran away and left behind a tiny bag. Everyone who touched it later died from illness. These stories were passed down as a warning. It's better not to get involved with Sihirtia. For a long time, they were considered imaginary spirits of the tundra, but archaeology raised doubts. At Mamayev Cape in Yamal, a settlement was found belonging to a people who lived here before the arrival of the Nenets. In the graves, there were dozens of metal objects, jewelry, knives, and dishes. The Nenets did not work with metal, and the skeletons themselves belonged to people of short stature, not dwarfs, but noticeably shorter than modern northerners. Their specialization turned out to be especially strange. In the tundra, wooden models of pickaxe-like tools were found. Farming is impossible here, which means the pickaxes were used to extract mammoth ivory. It was the tusks that could have been a source of wealth in Europe. Mammoth powder was considered a medicine, and the tusks themselves were highly valued. It's no coincidence that in legends, Sekirtia were depicted with bull horns. That's what the Nenets called tusks emerging from the ground. Over time, mentions of Sekirtia disappear. Scientists link this to the Little Ice Age and migrations. Perhaps the tribe went to Taimyr, or perhaps they assimilated. There is a theory that Sekirtia and Chutbeloglazaya are the same people. And then the legend turns out not to be a fairy tale, but a distorted memory of people who lived differently, looked different, and disappeared, leaving behind only fear and traces in the permafrost. That's exactly why I love archaeology. It constantly breaks our confidence in the past and proves that history wasn't the way we know it now. Thank you for watching this video until the end. Goodbye, everyone.